This is Andrew Miller, site editor over at hook'emheadlines.com. With me this week, we have Tarek LaCour, one of the contributors over at hook'emheadlines.com. Shane is usually with us, is out this week. Here to talk about the disappointment that was last weekend. I know I hopped on the YouTube show for the first time solo on Saturday and kind of gave some of my preliminary thoughts on it, but I have more complete thoughts on it now. Also going to talk more about West Virginia coming up. There's some recruiting stuff just because there's been a good amount happening, especially with wide receiver recruiting in the last week or so. Yeah, let's go ahead and hop into it. Tarek, you weren't with us last week, so, just any generic thoughts that you have, takes on the Tech game, anything like that?
Well, we had thought through the first 3 weeks maybe that Texas had exercised some of their demons from last season and that they would make adjustments and that they found an identity and things like that, even in the loss to Alabama. But a lot of the things that we worried about, second half adjustments, lack of creativity on offense in the second half, going away from what's working in the second half, and also the question of, this is something a lot of podcasters haven't talked about, but Sark's overall confidence in Hudson Card, it seems. Those were questions we had last year, and now they're kind of raising their heads again this year. Now, I don't want people to overreact to one game. We all knew there was going to be growing pains in the season, so it's so interesting how this happens. Before the season on Twitter, you'd see people saying 8-4, some people going as low as 6-6, some people even saying 5-7. So if you're going 8-4, that means you're expecting a few losses like this where it's just what's going on. But people are saying the sky is falling, higher PK, all these things. Everyone, let's take a breath. You held 3 straight teams to 20 points or less. So I don't think the sky's falling yet. Obviously, you have to make adjustments. You're not at full strength. You will be getting back there soon. So you need all that before you fully evaluate. But there are still concerns that need to be resolved.
Yeah, I like what you said there about just take a deep breath, that kind of the patience perspective here. I've mentioned that where, I think it's valid for people saying if Texas loses this weekend against West Virginia, that Sark is obviously going to be sitting on a very, very hot seat.
He's not going anywhere until after year 3.
He's not. It starts feeling more like Tom Herman in 2020 if Sark loses to West Virginia. I'm not I guess what I'm saying, more like Tom Herman in 2019, but then heading into next offseason, it would feel like Tom Herman in 2020, where it's just going to be insanely difficult to recruit. It's going to be, it's going to be a situation too where I feel like you're not going to, I don't think he's going to lose the locker room necessarily, but then you're going to start having those quote unquote culture issue conversations coming back up, and that's not anything that anyone wants right now. I was looking at, one of my personal favorites to read and look through is Ian Boyd. From a
good friend of mine. We talk almost every day.
I think he's got at least the best schematic mind of anyone that covers Texas. At least it might be the best at kind of explaining that, but also very analytical oriented. That's kind of where I like to come from on a lot of my thoughts for Texas. But he was mentioning some of the FEI ratings for Texas. Football Outsiders is very high. A lot of their metrics are very high on Texas's offense so far this season. Pretty much every single one is in the top 20. Texas's offense has looked good for the most part this season, and even a lot of the defensive metrics paint Texas as a top 50 defense still. So you can think of it one way as Texas just caught some bad luck, and we've had some injuries and things like that. I'm more in the camp that I I've watched good coaches that are able to make in-game adjustments. That's my biggest thing, is that Texas's talent was upgraded this season, and I think you've got more pieces in place to be able to understand what in-game adjustments you need to make. Offensively, obviously, they weren't there. Defensively, they weren't there for the entire game against Tech. I'll dive into this a little bit more later, but like as a whole, I really couldn't believe when I was looking at some of the metrics, some of the stuff that I like to compile, but also just some generic PFF stuff, some college football data. Texas only blitzed on about 18% of plays against Donovan Smith. I know that, like, the way,
But when they did, it worked, Iron.
exactly. I was digging through some previous weeks' data. The last time that Texas faced a quarterback that graded out on blitzes as a passing grade at least below 55, but blitzed on fewer than 20% of their snaps, I believe was San Jose State in like 2017. Now, I was like, there's a certain amount of reps that you have to get for that to even be, or a certain amount of passing plays that you have to get for that to even be relevant. But the fact of the matter is that, like, this
2017, was that Tom Herman's second game?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, yeah.
So you could probably find some other ones that fit that bill, but like it just astounded me that you're not seeing Texas throw a fifth or sixth guy out there more. Like, Texas Tech is killing you in the short and the intermediate passing game in the second half. They're just picking you apart on these like 7 to 10 yard plays. Miles Price had a great second half. And we're still playing soft coverage. We're not getting any safeties to shade down. We're not doing anything. It felt like we were, there were plays where we were getting pressure, yeah. But, like, I think one of the biggest stories of the season is Texas getting a ton of pressure and not getting home. But that was one thing to me of like, okay, you're blitzing and it's working, but you're not blitzing all that much, and you're allowing 6 fourth down conversions where I believe only one or two of the fourth down plays they blitzed. The rest they did not. One of them, Texas Tech still converted. That can happen, but like you have to be smart with the way you look at analytics.
The only time I've seen a team go 6 of 8 on fourth down is when I was playing Madden. So I've never seen that. And yes, I agree with you about the blitzing. One caveat would be, it looked like PK. And this is something that we'll talk about later. Just as I don't think Sark fully trusts Hudson Card to run his full offense, I wonder if PK doesn't run the full defense if Overshawn's out there to kind of be the mistake eraser, because that looked because when they were playing, I was like, okay, this wasn't what you've been doing the last 3 weeks. And the only thing that's different this time is you don't have your DeMarvion Overshawn. So I was wondering, was that why they were a little more hesitant to blitz, especially when they have Overshawn coming off the edge and things like that? Not making an excuse, but it is something. It is a wonder that I have. And
that is valid.
The thing that's frustrating too, but hopefully will be resolved, is you mentioned that what killed Texas was, the nickel and diving, the 5 yard, doing basically Joey Maguire woke up and just said, I'm going to do the YOLO game. We're just going to go for it on fourth down, do these short passes. And West Virginia does exactly that too. So
and
this will be a great test for Texas to see, what did you learn from last week? Now, luckily, you won't have the threat of JT Daniels running it. So that'll help you a little bit.
I think I'm faster than him.
Well, the guy's had 2 knee reconstruction surgeries. It's not exactly his fault at this point. But, JT Daniels isn't going to do that, so you won't have to worry about him running out of the pocket and things like that. So, but you're certainly going to need to get pressure on him, because he's probably, outside of Quinn Ewers, the best just pure thrower of the football in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of arm talent. I think one thing you can't discount this week, but we'll talk more about West Virginia later. They've had a good deep ball this season. He's the highest graded deep ball thrower in the Big 12, I do believe, this season. If you are looking top 50th percentile of pass play reps. God, that was a mouthful. But yes, they get the ball out quick too. So it's a different game.
That's the key. You're gonna have to, if you're gonna win this week, you're gonna have to bring the DBs up and press. You're gonna have to make them work for it.
You do, and you have the personnel. West Virginia's receivers are pretty good, no doubt. And each of them are a little bit different in what they bring to the table, and they're very experienced. There's similarities in the experience level and the variety of those receivers between West Virginia and UTSA. But yeah, as far as the Tech game goes, the last thing I wanted to say on that, really, from a defensive perspective, was it seemed like everyone outside of one name that at least among the big names here, it seemed like when you look at each individual player's stats and when you watch the film, they're holding their lanes okay, they're holding their assignments fine. No one's getting outright beat. No one's really getting beat deep, anything like that. There were a few contested balls. Jameer Johnson got picked on a little bit. But it wasn't any one player. I have problems with a Gofu. Man, he's already got more quarterback pressures through 4 weeks this season than he had all of last season. He's got 1 sack.
He's not finishing them, though.
No, he's still taking the improper lanes to the quarterback. It's the run defense. And sometimes it's so bad that it doesn't count as a missed tackle. It's just, you're not there. And so I'm doing a piece on this later this week where I'm talking about impact players that need to step up in the second half, and it's just got to be a Gofu or get Ethan Burke out there, one or the other. So I wanted to build off one point you were saying, which was interesting because I didn't really think about it head on that way. Where you had mentioned that obviously Texas was just playing different than they would usually in the first half without Overshown, which is clear. I mean, Overshown might be your best player on defense. I'd make a case for maybe Byron Murphy, maybe Deshaun Jameson, but Overshown's really good. And one thing that really stuck out to me when going back through the film and the numbers on this was, so Jalen Ford, I believe, led the team in missed tackles. Jalen Ford's been hot and cold this season. That can be a whole other conversation. But he had 4 or 5 missed tackles. Maybe I'm overblowing that. But he had at least 3. He led the team in missed tackles and missed tackle rate. Tucker Dorsey played okay, but Tucker Dorsey had a lot more weight on his shoulders, where it's he's being asked to do a lot more, and I think he did okay, but I like to think of Jaron Thompson last season, where you're just asking Tucker Dorsey to do things that he's not accustomed to doing, and that he doesn't really excel in doing. So many of these plays, you see Barron Sorrell's just not getting the pressure he needs to, or he's not setting the edge. Same thing with a Gofu. And then you're seeing the next level, that having to be either Tucker Dorsey trying to do too much or Jalen Ford missing a tackle. This is at least a few plays I saw where this exact thing played out. And not having Overshown was obviously a huge thing. Do we win the game with Overshown? I don't know, because we played a lot better in the first half than the second, and Overshown was there in the second half. But everyone's kind of hitting the nail on the head here when they're saying sure. Well, I don't know if everyone's saying this, but I've heard a few say this, where it's when you look at the individual defense, it's not that bad. The individual defense, they're missing less tackles. They're not allowing as many big plays. They're holding their gaps better. But we're not, we still don't have a major impact player, maybe outside of Overshown. Jameson can do it every once in a while. The rest of the guys, it feels like it has to land in their hands, like Barron with the pick 6 the other week.
I thought Johnny Barron played pretty well too, actually.
Barron, yeah, he's been solid this season. Yeah, but they needed an edge rusher during the offseason and didn't get one. Man, that's impactful. I think Overshown's going to have some sack numbers this season, but Barron Sorrell's not turning into the player that I think a lot of us were hoping him to be after week 1.
No, he's not. You're right, Jalen Ford is hot and cold, and I knew he was probably in for a cold day when he missed that Donovan Smith 4th and 3 it was 4th and goal, where he misses that tackle, where if he even if he just nudges him a little bit, the push that they get, there's probably enough to push Donovan Smith back. But him missing that allows that to go forward. So, yeah, you're not going to win them all. And this is something I said on Twitter today. Let's go back to 2018. So you win that game in the last 30 seconds, last minute or so, with that go-ahead touchdown from Sam Ehlinger to Lil Jordan Humphrey. In 2020, you were down 14, we had to go maybe 15, and then
it was 15.
And then you had to come back with like less than 4 minutes left or something like that. You had to get that onside kick. Everything had to go right. Okay, so something should have told you, okay, your luck is going to run out of luck. You can't keep getting that close and always walking away with the chips, So that happens, but it was just the fact that you were seeing so many of the things that you thought we were past last year rearing their ugly heads, even though hopefully people don't lose perspective on this. You are seeing progress in certain areas, but will it be enough? We're going to find out these next 4 games.
Yeah, I think this West Virginia game's not this West Virginia game's going to be so different than the rest of October, where it's like, this is just a game to build momentum and for Sark to prove that, that this thing isn't going to be a train wreck this season.
Can you just out-talent a team? How's that?
Yeah, here's my thing. What are the odds that this turns into, the Tech game from last season?
You mean just a blowout?
Yeah, that it just blows the doors off of West Virginia.
Here's my first question. Is Hudson Card starting or is Quinn Ewers starting?
I mean, in that scenario, I think you have to say that Quinn Ewers is starting. Just because
if Quinn Ewers is starting, then not because Quinn Ewers himself would do that, but I think this is something that we saw from Hudson Card. Card's not going to lose you a game. I think he showed you that against Alabama and against Tech. He's not going to be the reason you lose. Fine. But he's not going to take the game himself and win. And in college football, you need that. Even if you're a team like Alabama, Bryce Young had to just make a big play. He did that. Alabama beat us. I don't know that Hudson Card is going to do that for you. I'm not saying he can't necessarily, but I haven't really seen that with a tie score or anything like that, or you think that. And so, but with Quinn, what he does for you is he makes quicker decisions. This is something that also was on display again against Tech. Card holds the ball too long. Even when he makes the right play, I was just like, okay, you should have made that 2 seconds earlier. Like that last pass he threw to Jordan Whittington, you could have thrown that 2 seconds earlier when Whittington was already open. He just kept waiting and waiting, where Quinn can throw guys open, and also because he makes the defense think more, this gives you more room for Bijan Robinson, who, bless his heart, fumbled on that last play there, but, it happens.
Yeah, there's so many thoughts that I have about, the whole Hudson Card versus Quinn Ewers debate. I guess I'll look at, the glass half full approach here. I do feel really optimistic about this weekend from a quarterback perspective, where it's I think Quinn Ewers is going to play. If I'm just looking at the tea leaves, so that's just an educated guess. That's not any side information or anything like that. But even if Hudson Card does play this weekend, the first time he really looked good, at least in conference play last season, was against West Virginia, and then unfortunately gets hurt. But this West Virginia defense this season compared to last is not that different. There are certain spots where they're worse, mainly in the secondary. But from that perspective, if you're saying, okay, he was looking better last season against West Virginia finally, this season you're at least seeing him make plays where it's okay, he's keeping his eyes downfield, he's stepping up, He's like, occasionally he is working his way through the pocket, going through progressions, dodging pressure, things like that. Good things to see that we didn't see from him last season, really. But yeah, I mean, he's missing reads a lot. I feel like he's almost there, and I think there's a situation where
Hudson Card is like almost the picture perfect example of what Texas is. He's almost there.
He almost feels like in ways like a Baylor quarterback, where it's like he's not going to blow the doors off you. I said this about Blake Shapen last season. I was never sold on him as like this like super crazy. I think he's a glorified Charlie Brewer, in my opinion. But I think that's more Baylor's offensive style.
This week.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. But
is that in Stillwater? Or is that in Waco?
Waco.
Okay.
Yeah, 2:30 kick, so right before the Texas game. But yeah, like so if you're looking, like, I think if anyone's looking for like a good like game just to reference for what Texas could be facing against West Virginia. On Saturday, I think it's the Pitt game. Keaton Slovis and Hudson Card are different quarterbacks. I'm not saying that, but like Keaton Slovis got a little bit mobility to him. Hudson Card a little bit more than Keaton. But they both miss a lot of reads, and they both hang on to the ball for too long. And so that could be a problem. I don't know how that'll manifest itself. If Hudson Card's hanging on to the ball for too long and it's anything like when West Virginia played Pitt, West Virginia sacked Keaton Slovis, I think it was 5 times. So, but since then, they haven't been able to get home much.
The ball's got to get out quick this week.
If it's Quinn Ewers and he's even semi-healthy, that's going to make a huge difference because, man, West Virginia's defensive backs, I don't want to call them the worst in the Big 12 because I don't think that's the case.
And they're missing their starter too.
Yeah, Rashad Ajayi. If he's still getting a lot of snaps, man, you got to pick on him. He's been having trouble. One of the lowest graded. I think he actually is the lowest graded cornerback in pass coverage in the last 3 weeks in the Big 12. So you got opportunities here. You got to pick on them. But yeah, I mean, with Hudson Card, I find that to be a more difficult task. West Virginia's defensive front is very good. Dante Stills, I think, is one of the better defensive linemen in the Big 12, so he's gonna.
He's still there? No pun intended.
Yeah, dude, they have so many people that have been there forever. Like
they got a lot of 6-year guys, huh?
Yeah, I think Sam James got to be a 5th or a 6th year.
I'm wondering how many 6-year guys Texas will have next year.
Well, Christian Jones is 5th or 6th.
I think Christian Jones is 5th.
5th. Okay. I mean,
but let's see how long. But I'm wondering too, because a big part of the game that we didn't talk about, and this is something that goes into West Virginia, is where the offensive line has been weak, has been on the interior, and I'm starting to wonder, do Kyle Flood and Sark start thinking of maybe pushing Christian Jones inside to guard, putting Cam Williams at tackle, because you need more help inside, especially with Jake Majors being a bit undersized and being pushed around the last few weeks. So that's something to think about as well.
It is concerning that Hayden Connor has struggled a little bit in the last few weeks. I don't know how much of that is a product of I think a lot of that is that he's just getting a lot of the difficult assignments, and Jake Majors is just kind of a weak link in the middle. I think Cole Hudson will be good, but he's just he's not Kelvin Banks.
They're better at pass blocking than run blocking is the problem, but they don't have the quarterback to just throw it a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be a problem this weekend. If Texas just runs an inside zone 5 million times.
I don't know why Texas doesn't run outside zone.
I mean, especially with Christian Jones, man, I have a hard, Christian Jones might be your best run blocker this season.
No, he is.
Yeah. It is tough because, you need Gunnar Helm probably on the outside to help out, especially with the defensive front like Texas Tech that was a little bit better. Because Jatavian Sanders actually was missing some blocks. And
yeah, Yeah, I mean, Sanders has gotten better at blocking. He's still not perfectly consistent yet.
Yeah, I just hate that and I hate that we're talking about JT Sanders missed blocks, and that's like the biggest thing because he's just not.
They well, I think he and Quinn Ewers had a good connection ever since Jatavian Sanders gave them his jersey number. But you know, he hasn't been ever since Quinn's gone down. It's like they can't. It's like he can't be found.
I know it's like Jordan Whittington is Hudson Card's favorite target. I think that goes without saying.
As
But
he was Casey Thompson's.
Jordan Whittington's a great wide receiver. But it's the same thing as last season. If it's only Worthy is good enough to the point where like you can get him involved in multiple ways. Whittington, if he's doubled, kind of takes him out of the game. And
Yeah.
so, but I have questions because like I'm wondering what the hell. Where you still have weapons, man. Tariq Milton made a really nice catch. When he's been in the game, he's run some pretty good looking routes.
Where are Jay Hall and Brennan Thompson? That's another one. Like there's got to be a way that you could just put Brennan Thompson in the slot and just run straight. You'll run past everybody.
Well, and you were so high on Xavier Red. I mean, the dude is like built to be like a tech wide receiver, man. Get him out in like I'm not saying turn to Xavier Red. I'm not saying that's the answer. It's just you have a lot of depth here. This isn't like last season where it's like, oh crap, we've only got like semi-injured Kilvante Dixon and Marcus Washington who drops 5 balls a game. Like, you still got guys out here like Tariq Milton's done damage to West Virginia and Texas Tech in the past.
Did anyone else notice that they split? They went to the 5 wide with Bijan Robinson. It was early in the first drive, and then they ran Bijan out of the slot and he got wide open, and then they just never go back to it. Hey, you remember you can still do this, right? It's like if you put them out. Okay, basically, I was almost surprised that Sark didn't just say, you know what, anything you can do, I can do better. So if you're going to do this whole 5 wide thing, then I'm just going to put Bijan and these guys out there too, and I know you can't cover all 5 of them. So.
I guess that for me goes back to the whole thing where it's like, yes, we keep talking about there's no players on this team with a killer instinct, but when your coach doesn't have a killer instinct, that's going to reverberate down to the players. Like, Sark is clearly afraid to do things. Like, where was that play that got Keelan Robinson open on a wheel? Like, I get it. They're going to cover that the next time. But, like...
Right. So, okay, now you pulled the perfect thing. Why don't you throw out of the Wildcat? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Who can throw it?
Because there was so much frustration when it comes to the play calling in the second half on both sides of the ball. It
almost felt a little bit like Sark went to Lubbock saying, okay, I don't need to throw out much because this is Texas Tech. I should be able to keep it pretty basic and we should be able to win. And to be fair to him, that would have worked if they hadn't always gone for it on 4th down, because you kept getting them to 4th down, which means in a normal game, you were getting a lot of stops on 3rd down. Okay, so if half of those turn into punts, this is an entirely different ballgame.
It feels like a lot of the time on both sides of the ball that like the play calling is like when you constantly use the Ask Madden feature.
That's not a bad idea.
It just like it's so safe and it's so it's
very predictable.
It is. And I mean, like, I mentioned the Keelan Robinson play a minute ago. Like, Sark spends like conference after seminar, after coaching clinic, after press conference talking about how he likes to layer concepts on offense. He gets one player involved and then he gets other players involved in space once the field spreads out. He isn't doing that in like key Big 12 games.
I'm telling you, he doesn't trust Card. That's
I
why.
don't.
Because
Yeah.
okay, here's why. Here's why I don't believe it. But here's why I believe this. If you notice the way that Sark has coached at other places, go back to USC where he had Cody Kessler that one season. Go back to Washington. He did those things. The way he's coached at Texas is not the way he's coached anywhere else. And I don't know why that is, other than it seems, and I've noticed this too. The way Sark has talked about quarterbacks at Texas has been very different. Did you notice how when he said Quinn's going to be our starter, what he said actually, like, I'm really excited about it? Compare that to the year before, where one, he announced the starter a week later than that, right before the game, and he said Hudson will start, but Casey's going to play too. Which is basically his way of saying, well, I have to throw somebody out there. I guess we'll go with you. Then Carr doesn't do exactly what he wants in the Arkansas game. Then he goes to Casey. It's kind of working out, but never really committing to anyone or really saying, I really have faith in this person. The only person he's shown the slightest bit of faith in, at least verbally in front of everyone, is Quinn Ewers. And you can notice even the way he talks and the talks to him post play. Did you notice when Quinn Ewers threw that pick, he went and talked to Quinn and kind of, you said, told him to calm down, and the way that a quarterback coach talks to the quarterback versus like when Carr did it versus Tech, like Carr just went to the bench and Sark just like, okay, he'll figure it out. it's very interesting.
I'll tell you, if I was a 4-star quarterback, I'm never committing to Texas. Hard here, 4-star. He was 4-star quarterback. I mean, I don't think that Sark even has enough trust in the rest of his quarterback room. Like, you can tell that with the way they're treating this whole Malik Murphy situation. They're like sheltering him from the light until they like fix him.
Well, Murphy basically didn't go through spring camp.
Yeah.
So that's understandable. Charles Wright probably works fine in Tom Herman's offense, but yeah. I doubt he works in Sark's very well. I don't think Hudson really fits what Sark likes to do. I mean, he can work, but he's not made for that offense the way Quinn Ewers is. Quinn Ewers is made for that offense. Arch Manning's made for that. Like for example, like I don't think that Caleb Williams would work well in Sark's offense.
No, I mean,
so
yeah, in theory, like I mean, I don't want to say only once in a generation talent spit in Sark's offense. So far, that's what.
Oh no, he had guys like to run Sark's offense. One, you certainly have to have a strong arm because you need to hit the deep throws, but you have to be able to read a defense and make quick decisions. Like it's like being a point guard. The most important thing in Sark's offense isn't the arm strength; it's the quick decision making. And if you don't have it, it won't work. And Caleb Williams, I was watching that USC game. He does not make quick decisions. He's always trying to like make a magical play rather than just make the play that's there. But it's fine in Lincoln's offense because he likes guys to be like run around and do all those things. But like in Sark's offense, I could just see Sark just like pulling his hair out, like just make the easy play. So
yeah, I mean, there is a world where Malik's a really good quarterback in this offense for sure. But
it's gonna be Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, and then whoever's after Arch Manning.
Yeah, that's true.
Which we hope that he will be.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. Okay. So getting into the West Virginia game, I know we've touched on this in bits and pieces, comparing it to Tech from last weekend. There were two more just generic thoughts that I had on West Virginia, and if I can just be of a sort of like overarching get to know West Virginia. Maybe I can serve as that for one of my thoughts here. Defensively, West Virginia is good up front. Their defensive line, stout, experienced. Dante Stills does a lot of stuff on the inside that moves a lot of bodies and is probably going to take up 2 defensive linemen. There's a lot of pressure sacks that he creates for the other guys. And he has a lot of sacks himself. I think he got 3 on the season. He's good. The further back you go in the West Virginia defense, the worse things get. West Virginia likes to run kind of this hybrid 3-3-5, 4-2-5 offense where the bandit position is supposed to be someone that can rush the passer, can drop into pass coverage when need be. I have yet to see the bandit position be any sort of impactful in the last 2 seasons for West Virginia. If anything, it's been a revolving door of players. You can say the same thing when you move back to the defensive backfield, where you have some cornerback injury issues and just overall performance issues. Cornerback's one of the weak spots for them. Safeties, probably mediocre at best. Spear safety, another hybrid safety position where I just don't see West Virginia covering the ground that they're meaning to do with these hybrid linebacker, safety, edge rusher types. West Virginia is a stout defense as a whole, if you just look at the stats. But I think people are putting up, I'm hoping that I'm right with this. I think people are just putting way too much stock into them beating Virginia Tech by 23.
That Virginia Tech team was so bad.
Virginia Tech, they don't look like a college team when they're even playing West Virginia.
Or if they look like a college team, they certainly don't look like a competent college team.
Yeah. And so if I'm watching film for West Virginia, I'm looking at the Kansas or the Pitt games. I mean, Pitt's a good team. Kansas is proving to be a pretty good team. No one's blown West Virginia out yet. So I don't really like Texas would have to play a really good game. If Texas were to beat West Virginia by more than, let's say, 2 scores, that would have been well enough to beat Tech by like 3 or 4 scores. That's
the one thing I guess you could say to give viewers a little bit of hope in this game is you're playing at home. Sark's teams tend to play better at home than they do on the road. You're not going to have even though West Virginia will go for it on 4th down, I don't think they'll go for it as much as Tech did. I don't think they'll do the YOLO thing, especially because they don't have the running aspect of JT Daniels. Like they could run if they start running JT Daniels, then they're really in trouble. So you got that going for you. I don't think also West Virginia does not have like a game-breaking wide receiver that like when JT Daniels was at USC, he had guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, other people that you could just throw the ball up to. They don't have that kind of guy, even though Daniels is reunited with Graham Harrell, who is his coordinator at USC, at least for 1 game before he tore his knee. And then that was how Keaton Slovis was born. And I'd like to think you'll get a much more focused Texas team this week, knowing this is really going to determine your season. Because while Oklahoma will always be a big game, this game is going to decide how important that Oklahoma game is and what you're playing for. If you go into the Oklahoma game 3-2, you're already not where you wanted to be, but everything's still kind of ahead of you. He's like, okay, if you win this game, you win the Oklahoma game, you can still say, okay, we can still realistically get to the Big 12 title game. Will it happen? Who knows, but that's that. You lose to West Virginia, you're probably out of the Big 12. I'm not, and then of course Oklahoma is going to be the game that will decide: are people going to keep watching you after this? Will be the question. So, and answer that is yes. I'll still keep watching, but besides me.
Well,
And sadly, this is not like a great Oklahoma team either. So, that this is something to hang your hat on a little bit. Texas lost versus Tech, but Texas didn't get embarrassed. Kansas State was just running over Oklahoma. So,
yeah, that was like the game of Adrian Martinez's life.
like I was like, I kept looking at that game like, okay, let me get this straight. This guy, like, even the throws he made, it was just like, yeah, but that didn't look good.
No, I mean that was the best that you're getting from Adrian Martinez though. Where like what was that, a third and long play where it was a 45-yard line where he ran for like 35, 40 yards, just outran the Oklahoma defense. I mean, yeah, I originally pinpointed like the most important home game of the season in Big 12 play as Iowa State. And I still think that could be the case. It's really sad to sit here and say that the most important game, at least at this point of the season, is West Virginia, because just 2 weeks ago I was thinking that this would be like, I don't want to say a gimme game, but like it's probably the closest thing that you're getting to that. I don't think Kansas on the road is going to be easy this season, as sad as that is to say.
Well,
maybe this is just.
Well, we're going to see what they do with now that when they're playing Iowa State. And
Yeah,
things.
but I still think it's going to be a close game. I don't know. So I guess when I'm looking at this from a high level at West Virginia's offense, who do you think the best player is on offense? My personal opinion, it's probably C.J. Donaldson.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming you're talking outside of J.T. Daniels, right?
Yeah, I mean, C.J. Donaldson's just a true freshman. It might just be him.
Yeah. I forget what his name is. The bigger wide receiver.
Caden Prather.
That's probably who I would go with, because he's one of those guys that he hasn't put together a complete game yet, but for some reason, this is always, I don't know why this keeps happening against Texas. That tends to be the game guys do that. They're like, okay, well, we've played horrible this entire season. Now let's play well. Kind of like Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith had played not well the whole season. I think, and this is also goes into part of the game plan. I think part of the reason they weren't pressuring him was because they thought he would just make a mistake on his own. And then this was just the game he decided, nope, I'm not making any mistakes. So, and it can be the same thing. And now the good news for Texas with Prather is you have Watts, and I think Watts has played really well this season, who can be physical with him and probably won't let him take over a game. Because if it was just Jameson and Barron, I would be a little frightened. Because when a big receiver just gets on, there's just nothing you can do. A la Little Jordan Humphrey, a la Colin Johnson.
Yeah, and I mean, so West Virginia's got 3 good wide receivers. Bryce Ford Wheaton can be very good. I think Caden Prather can be very. Caden Prather's weird for a 6'4" wide receiver, man. He's like a 6'4" like slot receiver almost.
UTSA's receivers are more consistent than West Virginia's, that's for sure.
I would agree with that. Like Bryce Ford Wheaton, he's a guy that can gash you in the intermediate passing game. He can make some things happen after the catch. He's pretty fast. He's nothing like groundbreaking, but he's pretty fast. Sam James is a deep threat. Caden Prather, Caden Prather actually, so he's 6'4". He's only had 5 contested balls thrown to him this season. So he's not like their 50-50 guy. I want to say like 20% of his targets have come within no more than 2 yards in front of the line of scrimmage, which is a lot for, about 25%. That's a lot for a guy that's 6'4", and technically he's supposed to be your outside wide receiver. So
yeah, that's what you do with a guy like Jalen Waddle, where you just like get him the ball and let him start running.
Yeah, and like I just don't. I mean, we didn't. So if there's an equivalent to that we've played so far this season, I think it's Joshua Cephas. And my opinion, I would probably take Cephas 9 times out of 10 over Prather. At least in what I've looked at, Cephas looks like the more impressive guy. But here's where I actually kind of like the way that Texas matches up with West Virginia. So, yeah, you mentioned it. Ryan Watts, I was looking into it today. I was hard on him after the UTSA game, and I think rightly so. He was picked on a little bit in that one. But, man, he's got 29 receiving yards that he's allowed in the other 3 games this season. He's also been pretty stellar in run defense. Posted just before this, he's the second highest graded Big 12 cornerback in run defense.
I'm telling you, if we can just hold on to Malik Muhammad, this could be a really good secondary next year.
It could. And Deshaun Jameson, this could be the best season of his career. There were things that he did last season that were actually better. It just didn't show up because we didn't see him getting 9 pass breakups or having some highlight reel interception. The only interception he had was one that Spencer Sanders threw 10 yards off target right into his hands. So, but here's an interesting one that I've found. So last week, Texas Tech ended up, it was 80% of their throws, maybe 85%, somewhere in that ballpark, were short and intermediate passing games. They're not good deep. They're not, weirdly enough, they're just not very good in the screen game. You would think with a guy like Donovan Smith that you would like to get the ball out quick, and with a guy like Miles Price, you would want to do more screen, but they don't. Texas facing a team this weekend that more than 30% of their targets end up coming I want to say almost all screen game and then deep balls. It's about 14% deep balls, about 18% screen game. The point I'm getting at here is they spread the ball out a lot more. Weirdly enough, against Texas, I think that's a good thing. UTSA was looking really good when we were playing soft coverage, and they were picking us apart in the short and intermediate passing game because they had the personnel to do it. Same thing with Texas Tech. Maybe West Virginia adapts and tries to do that, but I don't think that's them. I don't think that's their identity. I don't think Graham Harrell's going to really stray away from that. So we've done a really good job of keeping plays in front of us, and especially near the line of scrimmage. We're not missing a whole lot of tackles this season. I'll knock on wood for this. It's just my take. I think the defense actually matches up pretty well, and I think they'll be better. The question is the pass rush still.
Yeah, I think that the defense I'm fine with. I just need to see a competitive second half out of the offense.
Yeah, that's fair. We can give score predictions. What do you got?
I'm gonna go 37-34 Texas.
Reverse overtime or no overtime? What do you think that's overtime?
No, I think Auburn just kicks a field goal to end it at the end.
That'd be nice for him to finally get something like that.
It's just the whole. It's just I can see Texas getting off to a hot start and then fading in the second half again. I just don't know, but this time I think the defense will do enough, and West Virginia may not have enough due to being away for Texas. I think Texas will do enough to hold on this week.
Yeah, I wonder what them come back home to if we see a little bit more blitz stunts with Gary Patterson actually being in the fold on Saturday. I don't know. Maybe that's reading into it too
Was
much.
was he not there?
I don't think so. I heard someone saying that over the weekend that he wasn't there.
Okay, it's
I
weird.
I don't know that that might be incorrect. I will go ahead and say I don't know that. I just heard that somewhere. But it's just an interesting thought because Gary Patterson was
I really don't know why they didn't just do what they did at Washington, which was make Patterson, if he's basically doing that anyway, just make him the defensive back coach and the co-DC. He does the back end, PK does the front. Marry it that way.
I'd rather PK do the secondary.
Hmm.
I don't
Well,
know.
we'll quibble about that. What's your take on this?
No, you're right. PK is better up front. If there's such thing as a pass rush coordinator,
Well, the guy they are doing better at pass rushing. They're just not getting
so hard
home.
to say.
Like the technique is certainly better.
Yeah, it's kind of a questionable group of edge rushers. Yeah, man, I feel like it's going to be, you know what? I'm just going to stick to my guns. I said today on the site that it was going to be 41-28. I'm the optimistic one this week. So technically, I won the score prediction last week because I said that Texas was going to win by 6 points, and that was the closest to losing that any of us had. So, man, I was hoping you had more optimistic than me this week.
I don't know. I just have more questions than there are answers with this Texas team at the moment.
I swear, if we see second half adjustments in this game, I think that's all we have to see. If we see second half adjustments in a tight Big 12 game, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
That's got because that signals that they're second half adjustments. If you make second half adjustments, Texas might be playing for the Big 12 championship game last season. If you literally make even slight tweaks to your advantage, because they didn't do any of that last year against the Baylor's, Oklahoma State's, OU's of the world. Anyway,
You're not wrong.
If you have any final thoughts, anything like that,
Let's just win a game.
yeah, that's fair. I'm gonna give one bold prediction, and then we'll cap on this because hopefully that this is something that comes true, and I think it could happen. There's a little bit of uncertainty when I'm looking into it, and from who I've talked to about DeAndre Moore's actual official visit date. There's one thing that Mike Roach reported at first saying that it was going to be November. There was another thing that Inside Texas reported that it's going to be October. From who I've talked to, it sounds like it will end up being October. He wants to get it done sooner than later. But I'm going to say bold prediction that if Texas can beat West Virginia, I don't even know how bold this would be if this happens. If Texas beats Iowa State and West Virginia, by Halloween, we're able to flip DeAndre Moore.
I'll buy that.
Then wide receiver recruiting's done. We can stop focusing on skill position.
I'm so mad we lost Jalen Hill, though. I was like, it's losing CD Lamb twice.
I was going to say that losing a skill player from East Texas is to Alabama's getting to be a familiar feeling.
And I know. I think Nick Saban just does it just because he doesn't like that we took Jeff Banks. That's what I think. But I digress. All right.
You would think you would go after more offensive linemen then too, because man, they're suffering since they lost Kyle Flood a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway.
All right.
Well, that's pretty much it for this week. It was a lot more optimistic show last week, but yeah. I'll be trying to come back. I mean, it'll be a late one on Saturday night, but a solo show. And maybe we'll have someone else jump on. But anyway, for Andrew Miller, Tarek LaCour at Hook'em Headlines, we'll have stuff linked below. Go check us out before the game this weekend. But yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.
Welcome.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you.
For sure. All right, man. Well, yeah. If you, I don't know, maybe we'll have time to
I can probably jump on with you post game, but we'll
Okay.
see.
Sounds good, man. All right. Well, thank you. We'll catch you
Bye.
later.